Hello and welcome to the Heads and Volleys podcast with me, Lee Dunn. I love everything about this convention that I'm at right now. The United Soccer Coaches Convention is so encompassing. It brings everybody in. There's people from all over the world, and I had a really unique opportunity to interview Erik Oman. He will introduce himself in the podcast too, but he was the very first coach educator that I experienced here in the US. He took me through the National Diploma and just left a mark on me in terms of what I want to do, who I want to be, the way he carried himself, the way he presented himself, the way just down to the basics of pressure cover balance that you work through in the National Diploma, how that just set a stone and it lit a fire in everything that I want to do and who I want to be. So I catch up with him every year at the convention, and he had an excellent presentation, which we'll cover. But I really pursued him and said, I really want to interview you. I really want to know, I really want your story to be out there, or at least let's talk about what you've been doing lately. So really enjoy this from Erik Oman. Leave me some feedback on Twitter. Leave me a voicemail through Anchor, and I would love to know what you think of this with Erik Oman. So, Erik, you took me on my very first coaching license here in the US, the National Diploma. So give us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you're doing.
Well, I'm in Seattle, the league technical director for the Puget Sound Premier League in Washington and North Idaho. It's about 34,000 players across that area. I'm also the director for the PSPL Academy, our academy program for the league, supplemental for all of our clubs. And then I teach for the Association for United Soccer Coaches, a little bit for U.S. Soccer as well. And then I work as a professional match evaluator for Major League Soccer, doing technical reports for games in the Pacific Northwest.
So you run coach education and you ask people to be nice coaches, and then you deal with professional coaches who probably yell at fourth officials all the time.
Yeah, I do get a little bit of that, and it's kind of fun to be able to regulate that in that role, or at least report it. I guess not regulate it, but report it. The nice thing is I have a great model in Brian Schmetzer, who, when I do the games in Seattle, he's right next to me, where I get the fourth officials table in between the benches, and so I get to hear Brian coach every day, and he's really he's a great teacher, and he's very good with the officials and does a good job. So
your background in soccer, where you've come from as a player, and
I grew up in small town Indiana. There was no soccer to be had, so I would sneak out of bed at 2 a.m. to watch Soccer Made in Germany with Toby Charles. But I got to see Indiana University in its early days. And wound up being able to play there for a while for Coach Yegley, and as he's done with a lot of guys, he's inspired me to coach and give back to the game, and so from there got a chance to play a little bit in the professional ranks, and then got a coaching job with a college while I was at that level, and I guess the rest, as they say, is history. But
and here we are.
I've been lucky to be able to do it my whole career. So yeah.
So we're in Baltimore. The session you presented earlier, and the on-field stuff. The title topic.
The diploma for the convention here is the technology in coaching youth soccer. Neil Hull did the field session this morning on flank play, and then using technology to supplement the training. We just had the classroom session that was kind of Neil's summary from his session and my introduction for the field session tomorrow, which will be on midfield defending, but all of it in how do we incorporate technology into training youth players. So then
before we really get into it, how do you see, I guess my question is about the now addition of technology, because I'm sure it's come a long way from when you were even playing.
Yes.
So
yes.
Like we talk about this overload of data, but we all assume it's for the good, the amount of data that we can collect.
Well, I think you can overdo it. It's like, too much of anything is probably not a good thing.
Sure.
And I think for the average youth coach, there are products out there that will just completely overwhelm you with data. So I do think it's important to find the thing that hits that sweet spot for you. But I heard Dick Bate, the English, legendary English coach, teacher, speak at the convention probably 10 years ago, talking about how, it hit the mark about we as adults have to be able to go down to where our players are, not down, but to our players, because they can't come up to where we are to relate. And kids today are digitally native, and
yes.
very much connected with screens, and they love to, they're doing video all the time. They love to see themselves on video, and so.
You mentioned TikTok earlier.
Yeah.
Which I know is storming, especially with the core youth age groups.
Right.
And a lot of coaches are anti, or they say, I don't do that. That's not me. I don't know how to do that sort of stuff. What do you say about that?
Personally, I don't either, but I try to keep my finger on the pulse at least enough so that for my academy girls teams, for example, we bring them in from all over the state. They don't know each other. We need team building activities that we can do to get them connected with each other. So things like that are great tools.
Yeah.
All right, you guys go make a TikTok, I have no idea what they're doing, but they're having a blast and they're bonding together.
Yes.
So for us, it's productive.
I see a lot of teams doing that.
Yeah.
Isn't the mannequin challenge that went out for a little while?
Right.
You see like soccer teams doing it and basketball teams, and everybody just gets on board. So yeah, I agree with that team cohesion.
Yeah.
So a lot of coaches are, I think, overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there.
Yes.
So the fact that you can probably just search an app store and find a whole bunch of material.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much that you could make yourself very dangerous with this amount of material that you can start collecting information from.
Yes.
Where do you think someone should start?
Well, I think the most important thing is a piece at a time, and find the thing that allows you to still bring your own coaching personality into what you do. You can't let the technology take over your presence as a coach.
Right.
We still have to be the ones that teach and develop the sessions and plan and organize. So, there's obviously a learning curve for any new piece of technology, and you give it a little bit of time to figure out and work through that learning curve. But I think it's really important that the most important thing is still that connection between you and the player, right? So the technology can't get in the way of that. It has to supplement that somehow.
It's really interesting because you think about trying to provide as much information to your player as you can, but that relationship with them is so important.
It's critical. The other thing I think, we as coaches and adult thinkers, we can sit here and have a conversation about the game and get into way down into the weeds about tactics and shapes and formations and systems and the intricacies of all that. We forget when we get on the field with young players that they don't have that depth of experience yet. And so one of the things I'm always, as you know from being through courses with me, is how do you simplify and get down to the principles of the game, the most fundamental things, and meet them where they are. So I mentioned in the classroom session earlier, I'll do a tactical session tomorrow that's a pretty complex tactical session. It could be in midfield defending, right? There's a lot you could cover there. But not knowing the players I'll get tomorrow, I'm going to have to start with individual defending and basic pressure on the ball, and do they understand how to do that? And if so, then we get to small group defending. And if they're good with that, then we can get to the functional groups. But I'm going to have to do a little evaluation on the fly with that new group that I don't know. Because if I go in and try to coach it as it were a college team or a high-level team, and I've got 12-year-olds, the session will fall flat.
Sure, yeah.
And it will with any of our sessions if we're trying to come over the top and teach where the kids.
So let me detour a little bit and ask you, because you made a good quote earlier about if the 1v1 isn't right, then forget about 2v2, or you can't go to 2v2 because the 1v1 isn't right. So explain on that a little bit more, because I've from my own experience, sometimes I've been in environments where I see people will work with an overall shape or a line, for example,
right,
so that you may be able to provide cover because perhaps the 1v1 isn't right. So they've kind of gone the flip-flop way around it.
Right. I see so often, and talking to college coaches I know and talking to the pro coaches, college coaches right now are walking around saying, we can't find a playmaking center midfielder who understands the game and knows why things happen and can solve problems within the game, right? Because most of the players they find right now are very programmed. They fill a role in a system because that's the way we train players right now. So we're taking the shortcut to playing in a system, playing in a formation, playing a role within the team without understanding why the game works, what makes the game work, why do you do what you do?
Right.
They don't know. And so that's where I go back to, they need to understand the why. We've got to teach them, or Vince Gansberg talks about who, what, when, where, and why. Right? If I don't know why I'm going to give pressure, then how's the rest of the team going to support and cover and balance and defend as a group underneath me? if there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Sure.
And we simply can't script every possible scenario. So that's to me why we have to go back to that fundamental thing.
So then to go back, I guess, really, and then bring in technology for that sort of stuff. I know Neil spoke, and perhaps you know more too, about almost filming whilst live. It just talks about hot feedback.
Yes.
So within the moment where you're asking players for that immediate feedback.
Yes.
And then the cold is then showing them that. Is that?
Yeah. Neil had an interesting twist on that today. I really liked that, where a quick interview in the moment right after it happened, that hot interview. What did you see? What was your decision making?
Why did you do that?
And without even looking at the video, getting them to give, like, close your eyes and think about what happened and tell me why you did what you did.
Yeah.
And then going back after the session, once they've cooled down a little bit, okay, take a look at that clip on the video now.
And let me know what you think.
And think about what you told me earlier. Would you change it?
So
and that's a really interesting way to frame it. It's not asking a kid, did you like what happened? Well, yes, of course. You know, those questions where you don't really get any information. You're asking them to really kind of digest that a bit. So.
And I guess my fear about technology, or especially in environments like this, where everybody talks about this app that they use, or I do it this way, and everybody becomes overloaded with information, and suddenly everybody's going out and buying expensive GoPros or cameras, but everybody has a camera in their cell phone.
Exactly.
You could use that, right? You can just film and then show your players. I have, with my players, I have like WhatsApp or even Instagram messages with my players where I can send them the clips, and that's speaking to them in their world.
Absolutely right. And I don't advocate spending a lot of money on technology. In fact, the technologies that I brought out were very inexpensive to show, because I wanted to have things that coaches could use tomorrow. You don't have to go out and spend much money at all. And you're right, the quality of the cameras in our phones these days, and most of them walking around with a lot of memory as well. It's incredible what you can do just with what's in your pocket.
Absolutely, so, yeah. And the players, it's on their language. I remember last year coming to a class, and it was about teaching the screen age athlete. So again, so again, we're dinosaurs, if you like, in saying, oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, the kids are on the phones. Kids are changed nowadays. But if you can get them on their level, that makes such a difference to them.
It does. You know, it's what I mentioned in the classroom earlier too. Is you know, the old model of here's everything you did wrong, and so kids hide. Right? I don't want to get exposed like that. I don't want to get called out.
Yeah.
And so when they learn then to be careful and to hide, you don't get maximum performance. You don't get a high-level performance, and you get kids that are going to quit because too much hiding, and that gets old.
Yeah, of course.
When we can meet them where they are on a screen and show them things that boost their confidence, then they come back willing to try more. They want to do more. They want to see more of that. And that's the thing I've always said with coaching education is we first have to hook them, get them committed, because it's a long-term development sport. You can't get good at it quickly. You have to take time, and we got to make them want to come back.
And we can have all of the technology in the world, but if the players aren't there because they don't want to play anymore.
That's right. Yeah, we aren't going to be very good as a soccer-playing country if all we're good at is FIFA.
No one's playing.
Yeah, we're playing with our thumbs, and that's all there is because we can hit the reset button.
Which is really interesting that you say FIFA, because if I think about it, just in this moment, when do you see replays on FIFA? You see replays when you score goals.
Sure.
You don't see replays of bad passes, or you might see a good pass replay because it's connected to a goal. Right. And I think about my own experience with my players, where we have the VO cam, the triangular camera that sits at halfway, and it films the game, and it's great. But again, now I have 80 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
What do I do with those 80 minutes? And then we looked at like individual player, and then individual players, and then team. But there's just so much, and I found myself putting together videos of 15 minutes. I don't think the players are watching that.
No, I agree with you. You think about how long is a TikTok, or how long are the videos they watch, right?
Seconds.
And so the other side, you flip that over too, is as a coach. You know, I'm lucky to be in this full time. I don't have time to sit down and really digest a 90-minute game for my kids on an ongoing basis and send everybody their own 15-minute video clip, right? So that was the other thing when I was thinking about what I really wanted to present here is what are ways that we can make this easy to take for myself, even as a professional coach, I can do it, but for you for another coach who has a full-time job and goes out after work with their kids
Yeah.
can still be something useful and connect with their kids on the screen, and not eat the rest of their day, you know. So.
I know it because I've spent maybe 2 hours on a video once because there were just certain things that I really wanted to show the players.
Yes.
And then come to find out they don't really care.
Right.
They care about the goals. I had a player text me and say, "Hey, did you get that kid pushing me over? I really want to show my friends and me being pushed over by this guy." Like, that's the stuff that they remember.
The highlight reels,
breaking it down to like the disconnect of 2 lines, and I'm deep in the weeds, just like we could get here. And
yes,
they, for me, it's like, well, I'm glad I can see that, but for them, I can take that to them in another way. They don't have to see that on video.
Right. I really think, you know, getting that full game film, breaking down video is great. The college teams do that. The pro teams obviously do that. It's great for high school age kids that want to send video to college coaches.
Of course, yeah.
Right? They need to have that kind of video. So yes, there's a place for systems like that and ways to break down video in big chunks to generate those highlight reels, or those scouting reels. But day to day with youth players, that's overwhelming if you try to do too much. So I think simplicity is.
Yeah.
You know, the beauty's in the simplicity.
So what do you, so what's your, I guess you listed, there were several things. So what was what's the biggest thing that you do, or the biggest impact that you've seen from a piece of technology that you use, the best thing that you can provide?
You know, the one, to be honest, is the little iPad app, Coach's Eye. And I only use the free version. I don't even use the paid version of it, which they probably wouldn't like, but it's...
Thanks, Coach's Eye.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Is it like,
but
it's like $5?
It's like $5 to download it, and the thing I love about it is I do clinics all over the place, and I take it and I hand the iPad to a kid and I said, it's a camera. Here's how you fast forward. Here's how you rewind. Here's how you draw on it. Find a clip, and you're going to show the team. And so suddenly that kid who, you know, an injured player who couldn't be playing, or a kid who's, you know, a spare player, you get that odd number. Okay, you're filming this time. And before we switch, you're going to teach the team. And suddenly now that kid who was standing on the sidelines and not engaged before is like, oh man, I'm on, I got to know what's going on.
Now I'm in charge, I know,
And they're the most popular kid on the team all of a sudden because they've got the screen to show everybody else the video at the end, right? So you find, to me, that's been the most dramatic impact because it connects those kids who otherwise weren't connected. And that kid then goes onto the field later already having the idea in mind, not having to try it for the first time.
And I think about knowing that you're being recorded is like, if you know someone's watching you, if you know, if anytime you know there's somebody assessing or watching or observing, you go up a little bit level.
Sure.
Like you look at the players that will mess around in practice, they'll never mess around in a game because it's a different environment. That's the next level for them.
Yes.
So if we can bring out, I've done it almost unconsciously with my players where I've had an injured player and hey, film this.
Right.
And I go and coach, and I'm probably doing it more for my own brand than I am for the actual review of the players.
Yes.
But even in the camera, I can hear him because I watch it back, and he's like, oh, like someone gives the ball away or he shouts something at someone, and then suddenly they're all again playing up to him because he's filming the game, and it's just
that's right.
It's so simple.
Yes.
Really, it's so simple.
And you know who the other person that really benefits from all that is? You as a coach. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've seen some of those clips from the kids, and you know, oh man, oops, you know, I missed that one, or I wasn't, you know, I didn't address the team where they could hear me, or you know, a million other little things. So for me as a coach too, those little video clips are very informative. So. And
I had, just on that again, I had a stoppage moment where, hey, just hold there, and the camera was on me, and then he clearly lost interest because he started panning around the field, and there was a dog running around the outside, and he's like, oh, a dog, and he's stuck on the dog. I said, hey, are you serious?
Yep.
And he's like, sorry, coach. I said, well, that's a really good reminder for me, because if that's how you feel, isn't the players that are having to stop in the flow so much more?
That's right. That's where everybody else's eyes were going too. That's exactly right. Yep.
So on the field tomorrow?
On the field tomorrow, 3:15. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Defending in the midfield?
Defending in the midfield with an yet as unknown team. So will be interesting.
I always thought that you were able to work with players like a day before and get to know them, but
nope. No. It's a cold intro.
Myth busting. Here's the players.
About 15 minutes before the session starts, a group will come walking in, and I'll say hello for the first time. So
Do you have let's go down the coaching education pathway? Do you have a secret for how you engage with new players like that and to get them to perform for you? And thinking when you go to coaching school and you have players like the Federation now is all players, and so you've got this whole group of players that you've never met before, and they've probably gone through multiple sessions already, so they're like, oh, here's another guy I've got to play for.
That's the hard part, when they've gone through multiple sessions, and here we go again. Yeah, that one's tough. But it is, like everything, I think it's the personal connection. So the second they walk in, I'm going to high five them and welcome them. And the group that was in this morning, I said, I'm so sorry to pull you out of school this morning. And of course, got a big laugh, and they were very happy to tell me about all the things they were missing today in school. So finding that little connection first, and little tricks of the trade that we'll use for these presentations, like get to know 2 players' names, and then say all the others. When I go to make a coaching point and I look at you, just whisper your name. So, but those little personal touches, I think,
for sure.
Go a
I
long
learned
way.
If you're working with the midfield, learning the midfielders' names.
Yeah.
Because that's your focus.
Yeah.
And I watched a session earlier, and the guy didn't know anyone's name, so he's like, "Hey, green," and then 7 greens turn around, and then 6 of them is not talking to them. So next time he yells green, nobody turns around because they don't know who he's talking to.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Names are a big thing for sure.
Names are very important. Yeah.
Are you going to any sessions here? Do you have any highlights that you're planning on seeing?
Well, the Indiana University, where I played, has the release of their movie tonight.
Oh, really?
About the history of the program and leading to their first championship. And that was those were some of my days around the program there. So I've got to go see that one, of course.
Of course, yeah.
To me, one of the great things here is the Walt Chisowitz Awards, kind of the historical recognition of lifetime achievements in the association and in the game. I find that really, really fantastic to see, the history of the game recognized and brought out.
Sure.
Similarly, the awards banquet, it's a long night, but it's worth seeing.
Yeah.
And
I think
then,
you realize just how much people give.
Yes.
Because we, for the most part, we live in our own little bubble. We do our own thing. We work with our own players. We're in our own environments. But you come to places like this and you see people that have been around for 40 years, 50 years, coaching, like consistently, and you just think, oh my goodness.
Yes.
I thought I was doing a lot. These guys are just continuing to do it.
Yes, you're right. And I don't know, I think we are so lucky to be in the time that we are in the game. When I was young, there wasn't this, in this country, right? The game was just in its infancy here, really. The NASL was still playing. And that first generation of coaches and leaders who put in the work to build the game in this country were still active, building this association from the start and starting with that. And then I was lucky to play for a couple of those guys along the way. And now, that second generation that followed them are kind of retiring out. And but to be here in a period of time, to have seen the first generation guys first person, and the evolution of our game from where it's come to where it is today is just an amazing thing to see. So
it's a really cool environment. So if you're not here, you should be here.
Absolutely.
And get here next year, and it's on the West Coast next year.
Los Angeles next year, yes.
We get some sunshine, although it's sunny right now, but snow forecast tomorrow.
That's right. Never know here, for sure. Yeah.
Erik, thank you so much, man.
Lee, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Great to see you doing so well, my friend.
I just loved everything about this interview because he's so open and he's so genuine, he's so caring, and that is exactly where most people are at that's in this convention, and even in the Twitter sphere, as we joke about. But so many thanks to Erik for what he did to light that fire in me early on, but then also for his time today, just to be so genuine and be so open in his conversation with me. So I hope you enjoyed this. There's more coming from this convention here, and look out for more from Heads on Volleys coming soon.